As the candidates gear up for the post-Labor Day sprint to November, polls show the race for president is tightening, with the latest Real Clear Politics average giving Hillary Clinton a 4.5-point lead over Donald Trump nationally, down from almost 8 points earlier this month. That lead shrinks to 3.9 points in a four-way race with Libertarian Party candidate Gary Johnson and Green Party candidate Jill Stein. And in some key swing states, Trump appears to be chipping away at Clinton's lead as well. Ed Goeas is a Republican pollster and president of the Terrence Group. He joins me now from Washington. Ed, good to see you.
Good to see you, Paul. How are you?
Good, thanks. What do you make of this Trump modest bounce?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting. I think everyone keeps looking for big movement in the race. Both candidates, if you look at the average of all the polling going back for the last year, both candidates have been working within a certain range, bandwidth, if you will, on the ballot. Hillary's bandwidth is a little bit higher, Trump's is a little bit lower. But as we've seen the fluctuations of the race, it has come from Hillary bumping to the top of her range and Trump to the bottom, or both being in the middle. Or as we're seeing, I think, with the numbers, I think Hillary has been inching down towards the bottom of her range, and Trump has had a good couple of weeks leading up to his speech in Arizona on immigration this week.
Yeah, on that point, Ed, I think that what it looks to me like is Hillary Clinton's favorables have been going down, and with that, her ballot test back from the mid-40s to maybe even upper 40s in some surveys, now back down, and that's the big change in the last 2 weeks.
Actually, the image of the two candidates is not changing much. Both started a year ago with a 55% unfavorable rating. If you look at the averages today, Hillary's at a 54%, Trump is at a 56% unfavorable. Those numbers are baked in. That's what I mean about everyone keeps looking for big movements in the race. I think the only potential for big movements to break out of that bandwidth that they've been in is the first debate, and that's nearly a month away.
And is that would that be in particular if Trump can improve his image as a potential president? Is that the key test for him in the debate?
I think, you know, first of all, there's not much expectation for the candidates to move their favorable-unfavorable rating, but I do think you could see him bumping up towards the top of his range and her knocked to the bottom, or vice versa. But the bottom line is, I think this race is, if you look at the numbers today, you mentioned 4.5 points. If you look at the race today, I believe that's about where the race is. That's kind of the center of them both being in the middle of their bandwidth.
So is this a race where one of the two candidates could win the presidency with 45% of the vote?
It is, and that's where you look at, I think you're going to see everyone looking more and more at the four-way ballot.
Right.
The interesting thing about the four-way ballot is actually Hillary loses more. For example, the latest Fox News poll, she had a 6-point lead on the two-way and dropped to a 2-point lead on the four-way. She loses more of that vote. And I think where in the past we've always kind of downplayed the four-way ballot because those candidates in the fall tend to fade away.
Right.
Because the negatives are so high with both these candidates, I think you're going to see them driven to that point on the four-way ballot. And if not vote for those candidates, they may well stay at home. Well, and that's when you see the numbers change.
Okay. It puzzles me that the vote for Gary Johnson, the Libertarian, would be coming from Secretary Clinton. The Libertarian, you'd think, would be taking votes away from the traditional, more free market party, the Republican Party. Why do you think this might be happening, taking votes from her in this election?
Well, again, it's coming from independents. It's not coming from Democrats or Republicans. It's coming from independents who have a 65% unfavorable rating of both these candidates. What you see is that Trump, in the four-way, Trump's advantage with those independents shrinks because he's also losing some of those independents. But in the case of Hillary Clinton, she has two places those independents can go. They can go to Stein or they can go to Johnson.
Right.
And that's what's happening. It's not that all those votes are going to Johnson.
Do you see any chance that Trump can flip this where he comes up on top, other than maybe a sterling debate performance?
You know, I have felt all along that there's nothing in the numbers that says he can't win this race. So that's always an opportunity. That's always going to be an opportunity for him. You know, he's at a a little bit of a disadvantage if you look at the numbers, but certainly he can come into play. I think more and more the focus is going to become the ground game. I was talking to someone this week about Hillary having 450 people on the ground for her campaign in Ohio, and with Trump, he's depending on the National Party. They have 100 people on the ground in Ohio for him. That could make 3 or 4 points difference on Election Day.
Yeah.
And if she has a superior turnout, these numbers all of a sudden become that much harder to overcome.
Does it look to you like Pennsylvania, maybe, which Trump had targeted, maybe increasingly out of reach for his campaign?
Interesting this week, Real Clear Politics moved it back into a toss-up on the presidential. And I think when you're looking at the Senate race, the assumption in Pennsylvania, the assumption in New Hampshire, is that as long as you keep the margin of the loss, if he loses those states, low, they can overcome it with running a superior campaign, which to date they've been running very, very good campaigns, both in New Hampshire and in Pennsylvania.
All right, Ed Goeas, we'll keep watching. Thanks for being here again. Hope to talk to you before the election's over.
As always, Paul.